I'd like to call the meeting to order. Roll call, please.
Weedman,
Here.
LaCroy,
Here.
Mesco, absent. Northern,
Here.
Parkinson. Here.
Okay, we do have a quorum. Please cite the Pledge of Allegiance, please.
We're all looking underneath.
Clayton thought it looked good when the screen was up.
Okay, next is, I need a motion to move into closed session regarding Open Meetings Act 5 ICLS 120-2 C9, student disciplinary cases.
Second. LaCroy? Parkinson? Aye. Weedman?
Aye.
Northern.
I don't see this being very long, so just bear with us. easy, that was easy. I'm the answer man. Okay. All right, ready to go? Okay, welcome back. Next is the approval of the agenda, including the consent agenda.
I'll make that motion.
Meskel,
Aye.
Weedman,
Aye.
Northern,
Aye.
LaCroy,
Aye.
Parkinson.
Aye.
Okay, next is public comments. Seeing as there's none, we'll move on to the next part, which will be presentation on our solar panel project discussion. Do I need to move? One meeting, just one meeting.
There's an empty chair.
That may not be
That might not be a bad idea.
I think I have it.
That's a different computer though than ours.
Here. You can get it on.
Did it fit?
No, no, it's-
Oh.
Okay.
Oh, you know what? Sorry.
Woke me up.
Talk pretty loud, but you can use this if you want as well.
Yeah, you gotta use the mic.
Okay.
Video.
Yes, got it. First off, let me say thank you. My name is Kurt Hintz. I'm the Business Development Manager for Performance Services. I was asked to come and speak to you tonight on behalf of Mr. Bobeck and Keith over here, and I appreciate you taking the time to let me here. Solar has kind of taken off, and your neighbors to the high school district, we've actually finished the ground mount, and we have the roof mounts being installed currently. So that's one of the reasons that I was asked to come in. Please stop me at any time, any questions. I'll go through, kind of keep this very high level so you understand, but don't be afraid to stop me. Illinois Solar has really taken off because of the renewable portfolio standard. It's basically a mandate that makes the utilities continue to be renewable. And right now it's 10% of the renewable energy has to be throughout all the utilities, and 6% of that has to be solar. So the pot is continuing to grow. By 2025, it's going to be 25% renewable and 6% still solar. So solar is just beginning here in Illinois. We had up to about 70 megawatts of solar total in the state up through the end of 2016. And the plan is to be at over 22, almost 2,300 megawatts of solar by 2025. So in the next 8-9 years, a lot of districts, communities, commercial, everybody's going to be doing solar. What has really made solar viable is the SREC credits. And solar itself has been around for over 60 years. The technology hasn't changed. They still use the same crystalline panels that they did when they first developed. Obviously, what's changed is the production. China, Korea has really helped reduce the costs. And with the SREC credits, Illinois was, I'd say, late to the game to adopt the SREC market. It started in June of 15, where they didn't even announce that they were going to open one up. People found out in October. They've had 3 procurements since. We just had a procurement last week for SREC credits. Those credits are, again, the solar renewable energy credit, which you actually pay for every month on your utility bill. There's a line item that is renewable energy, and this is what goes towards paying those credits. The IPA is the Illinois Power Agency, has been holding those funds for years, and now they've just started to enact a program to fund them back. Basically, the utilities didn't want to put their own solar arrays up, quite expensive, and they don't have the manpower to do it, so they've offset that to everyone, communities, again, residential, commercial, and obviously public entities. Because of that, you are producing your own commodity. Basically, when you look at solar power, it is a commodity that you could trade. It's a commodity that you could sell. The IPA is offering credits for 5-year stints, and those I'll explain and get into a little bit more detail. But the credits themselves are all part of what we would call an open market. Google, Apple, Amazon, they're looking to keep a very renewable portfolio, so they're looking to buy credits. So you may not always get the same value, but there's always going to be a market for you producing your own power. And if you think of it, you're saving the energy that you're producing, and you're getting a credit on top, and that's what's making these projects not only viable, but actually paying districts to do them. I say here financial is obviously a big key, because it is. You're locking in an energy rate. Now, I don't want to confuse you by saying that your energy rate will never change. It will change, and by the end of this year, the smart grid has come in play, and there will be a spike. When you have to renew your contract, you can see, we've heard from ComEd's top management, anywhere from 10, 15, up to 20% because of the smart grid. They are using it and offsetting it to say that they don't have to have a manpower, somebody go out and test your meter, that every 8 milliseconds they'll be able to read how much usage you have, and they're going to compare you, I say the district, to other buildings of similar size. So if commercial buildings in the area have put solar on, they're going to be producing less, consuming less at that time. Every 8 milliseconds, they're going to take a reading. You potentially could be charged more in the future. So it's something to be aware of. We don't know exactly how good it's going to be, but it is coming. The reason I say we lock in that rate is because it doesn't really matter what that rate is if you're producing your own power. If they're charging you, I believe 7.5 cents now, and it goes up to 8.5 cents, that would be quite a bit of money that you'd have to spend. But if you're producing your own power, it could go to 8.5 and you wouldn't feel the effects. So that's a huge advantage of having solar. Environmental, obviously we all know there's carbon footprints and just being a good steward. Solar is a very safe energy. And there's an educational piece. Not only STEM labs, tying in, you get live monitoring, which I'll explain in a minute, but actually having the ability to do potentially classroom kits and get the students involved and learning about solar, because again, when I say solar is coming, it is. We're just scratching the surface of where we want to be in terms of this region. There we go. Quick little history again. You can see the difference price per watt. That's kind of a rough guide. China, Japan, Korea, even other parts of the United States are producing a lot of panels. We can get panels almost anywhere, and the wattage difference is unbelievable. When we started doing solar here in Illinois, in beginning of 2016, the panels that we could get were 305 and 310 watt panels. We are now able to get 355 watt, 360 watt, and that's continuing to grow every day. A different wattage comes out, and so the idea that the wattages are increasing, so your production is getting a lot better, and the costs are continuing to drop is really, again, why solar has become so viable. Anything under about $3, that $2.50 to $3 a watt is a very good turnkey price for a large installation. This is completely different if you're talking residential, and I'm not the expert at all on residential, but this is for commercial and public.
So what of the watts did you have it, are you putting in it on 127?
So we actually have 355 watts, we have 325 watts, and we have 335 watts.
Okay, so you got a little bit of everything.
We have a little bit of everything, yep. When we first started looking and some of the numbers we gave them, we were basing it on 310 watts.
Mhm.
But between the first time we've talked about it and then going through the process and actually securing the contract, the wattages kept changing, so it made sense to continue to grow. Plus, if you think of it with structural issues, Central High School is 90 years old.
Right.
It has wood areas that we had originally thought we'd be able to put panels because it was a nice flat area. You can't put solar on wood, so we've had to move panels, and because of that, we didn't want to lose the SREC credits that we had, so we had to increase the panel wattages for that. What we've learned is that whenever we do a design, we're going to give you an average of either 325 or 335s, knowing we have a lot of room to grow if we need to, and if structure comes back and allows for it, we'll put the higher wattage panel on. But it also, if it doesn't allow for as many panels as we thought, the higher wattage panel will keep the production where we need it to
What
be.
about the ground panels?
The ground panels, you have, it really comes down to price. So we would say put as many of the highest wattage you can find in the ground. You're gonna get a much better production, which I'll get to, on the ground than you will on a roof because of the spacing and because of the angle. On a roof, we can go about 5 degrees. After that, there's a lot of issues with downforce, not only the updraft, which we have to protect for, but there's actually the downforce, plus snow load. Structural engineers take the worst case scenarios of everything. They probably added a 50% safety factor on that as well. And so you have to make sure that the structure can handle it. And so 5 degrees is about all we can do. But on the ground, we can do 10, 15, even up to 20, or 20 degrees, and that will get you a much larger payback in your production. Good questions.
Question I had. Where
Yep.
did you say we get the panels from?
We get the panels everywhere, honestly.
Are they made in America?
There are some that are made in America. A lot of them are made overseas. The majority of the panels that we've been using are coming from, again, China, Korea. We go to the port in the West Coast and the port in the East Coast, and they're sitting there on the docks, and we literally.
So are they less expensive? Are they less expensive than the ones that's here, or better, or the other ones that's made here in?
It's really hard to say because it changes so dramatically. So what I mean by that is every 10 or 15 minutes, the price is potentially going to change.
Changes.
So until you wire that money, and we literally just had to wire $650,000 to the Cayman Islands, which was a very interesting thing. But the panels did arrive, and we did get them. The prices change until you lock in, because there's so many people doing solar. It's not just here; it's all over. It's hard to tell you exactly, but we have a pretty good idea of what we can get them for. We're going to look for what the best wattage opportunity is. Obviously, we want a quality manufacturer, and we're going to look at where the location is. If we can go with Made in America, we will, but sometimes price just dictates which way we're going to go. This is, I say solar is simple. It is simple because there's not a lot of moving parts. It's not a simple process, though. Majority of the work comes from the start until the installation part. Site assessment is imperative. Looking at structural drawings, taking a look at roof structures. If there's a ground mount, potentially looking at the ground, making sure that that the land can handle it, that you're not in a floodplain, all different things that would go into it. So there's a lot of site assessment. The designs are done with historical weather data in this area, 40 to 60 years. We have a program that we use that will take into account all the shading, soiling, cloudy days. Typically, you look at this climate and you would think this isn't a good solar area. This is actually one of the best, if not the best, in terms of climate-wise. Now, we don't have the same number of sunny days that you would get out west, but a warm, sunny day here, actually a cooler, sunny day in the Midwest will produce more solar than a hot, sunny day out on the West Coast or Arizona.
So
or
in the
the
winter, when we think it's nice outside and it's freezing because the sun's shining,
The sun is shining, but the sun's at a different angle, so it wouldn't be as high. But the panels will produce more because, again, the electrons aren't heating up as fast,
yeah.
and the panels aren't as hot, so they're going to move quicker, so you're going to produce more. So it's very interesting. That's one of the biggest
That's
misnomers
science. That's
everyone
science
says.
time. That's science for you.
So the designs are obviously something we do. Site system approval would be between structural engineers or civil engineers, racking manufacturers, and then obviously the district. That's what we mean when we say system approval. There are a lot of different options and ways to go. How big do you really want to go? How much money do you want to spend? And how much land potentially do you want to use? Those are all the things that would go into decisions on your part. And then what we can do based on structural analysis and as well as the civil analysis.
Now, in the system approval, we're also including village approval and all of that.
Village approval, which we've been through quite extensively with the high school district as well. Yeah, again, for the ground mount, we had to put up special fencing and different things like that, but we've gone through that as well. And the system approval is also going through an RFP process because we are not opening it up to a completely open competition between ESCOs to bid on behalf of the district to secure your services. So that's all part of that system approval. Installation then obviously follows. Commissioning is, there's a test period to make sure that the panel and the system is up and running and working. And then also coming back multiple times. The panel itself is really gonna only have trouble potentially in the first year. If you think of it, it's gotta go through heating and cooling on and off. It's like an engine. You're not gonna run it full blast right out of the gate. So it's gotta get used to the thermal cycles. So we make sure we monitor and we keep coming back on something that, just to make sure it's still working.
Now, from your start period until the installation, what period of time do you generally see that?
That's a great question, and I don't have an exact time. I would think, depending on how much information is provided. So if you have structural drawings already, and you have civil plans, and you have everything in place, it's a matter of hiring our partner. We don't have civil, we hire that out, and we also hire out the structural. There's a lot of back and forth, because if you think of it, they'll do a design based on the helioscope and Google Earth and walking the premises. As soon as they do the actual layout, well, the racking may not fit perfectly. So then every time you change a panel location or move a racking, then you gotta go back to the structural and make sure that area can handle it. And then when structural makes any changes, they gotta go back to racking. So there's a lot of back and forth. That is by far the longest period of time, and I can assume that would take at least a few months.
And it can only be done, I'm sorry for so many questions.
No, this is great.
Can it only be done in the summer?
No, not at all. Actually, majority of our projects were done over the winter and into the school year. We work with kids. Besides, obviously we'd stay out of areas of testing, but otherwise you really wouldn't know anyone's up there. You might hear it here and there, but the other installations that we've already done, we worked through school. Yes, sir.
Do you prefer going on the roof or on the ground?
Ideally, if there was enough ground and it was conducive and it was close enough to a building, ground is by far the way to go. For the cost, which is it might even be cheaper, or at least it's going to be pretty equal to a roof mount, you're going to get a lot more actual production, so it'll help offset your consumption.
And maintenance is easier.
There really is no maintenance on either side because there's no moving parts. The panels themselves, if it snows for the most part, once they heat up, they're gonna melt off unless you get a really big Midwest snow. It's not something to worry about.
Earlier you mentioned floodplain. What floodplains are you looking at? Are you looking at 100-year or million-year?
It's a great question, and I wouldn't have had that answer except that for our Warren Township project, they are asking us to look at the 500-year flood, which I again feel is a little maybe unnecessary since the building would be underwater, but the panels would still be okay. So we're putting them up high enough so that it would cover a 500-year flood. But we would look at that as well. The ground mount for the high school district is in a wetlands. It was buildable land, 2 acres inside of wetlands, which the wetlands had shifted even since they had originally purchased that land. So we look at all that. Interconnection is just between the ComEd and the grid, getting your meters so that it keeps it going. And then performance assurance is us just monitoring the system and making sure that you are receiving your SREC income. So there's an extra meter that's put in to monitor the SREC credits.
Another question I have for you is, what is the visibility of them on roofs?
So,
Sightlines?
yeah, on the roof, you're
Because they may not be very appreciative.
correct. I think that's a individual and a district decision on what everyone feels. I personally think they look kind of cool, but a lot of people might look at them as an eyesore. Same thing with the wind turbines. You know, everyone slows down to see them, but if you're used to seeing them all the time, yeah, you probably get tired of them. Typically, on a flat roof, you're not going to see them at all because they only sit about 10 inches off the roof. Putting them on the shingle roof, yes, you would definitely be able to see them. The ground mount would come with fencing, chain link fence, so you potentially could see them. We did put a fence, a wood fence up for the high school because the people at the cemetery did not want to see the ground mount. So,
And then so back there, if they were up on the roof or they were pushed on it, even if they're on the ground, reflectivity back out into the atmosphere, if somebody, everybody reflects into their bedroom window or?
no, there's there's non-reflective glass that's on there. That, which I will get to another picture of the actual panel on the roof next door here, but that is what it looks like. So it's very non-reflective glass. If you think of the panel itself, it's it's actually 72 cells that make up one panel. And the panels themselves are a little bit bigger than 8 feet and a little bit bigger than 4 feet. They're not a standard size, but they're all the same size. So it's kind of a plug-and-play type system, a little more complicated, but for argument's sake, you could, if something went wrong with one panel, you could replace that one panel and it wouldn't ruin your string. So, roof mount, we've talked about ground mount, and there is a parking lot system. It's used a lot more on the West Coast because keeping their cars in the shade and getting solar. It is very expensive, and it is the most expensive by far, the parking lot, and you still are stuck at about a 5-degree angle, so it doesn't have the same production that you would get off of a typical ground mount. That's what the ground mount will look like. Those do sit higher off the ground, but again, you're typically in an open field or a detention or retention area, so it's not as necessary. And that's what the carports look like. The panels in the process in this program will generate net income to the district. You will be positive year one. We have seen that on all of our projects. The SREC income helps. The SREC income is not, once locked in, is locked in for 5 years. In the future, that contract might be extended to 15 years with the new Senate bill that was just passed. But currently, it's five-year income, or 5-year rates. A blind bid that we would do on behalf of the district for a rate that was determined by everybody here. But it is a very competitive market to bid for those SRECs, and so we keep it. We want to be competitive, but we want to make sure it works out. With the SRECs, with your energy savings, with funding options, districts are making money year one, and we've been able to prove that, and it's pretty exciting, and that's the reason I'm here today. I talked about STEM, and I've talked about learning, the stewardship. There are 4 other large districts that have already have installations. Libertyville was the first, the elementary district. They did it through a grant program that doesn't exist anymore. They got about 1.2 million in a grant, offsetting, I think their installation was a little over 3 million. We've used them quite a bit in talking about, because they were the ones that told us you don't have to worry about any maintenance costs, because there's really nothing you have to do to the panels. They pretty much, you know, if dust does get on them, the next rain, it washes right off. Snow gets on it, when the panels warm up, the snow melts off. So that really helped us eliminate an extra cost that we were putting in the process. But Lake Park High School is currently the largest installation in the state, running right now. And we have live monitoring feeds of them. Grays Lake will be the largest when they are finished. The ground mount is up and running and producing its own power as we speak. And Valley View School District is down in Romaville and Bolingbrook, and they have 5 elementary buildings that we're doing. So they have 22 buildings total, so they have a lot of room to grow. So right now we've built up a little bit of a competition. This is what the roof will look like at Grays Lake. I'm going to show you a picture in a second of actually what the panels look like on a roof, but this was one of the first things that we did for Grays Lake to show them. You can see they had some middle areas that you would think would be great for solar, but those are pretty bad shape roofs, so we've avoided those at this time. 32% of their power, 32% of their utility costs go away by installing the solar, which equates to real dollars and quite a bit. And they're going to be looking at over $100,000 a year in positive cash flow. This is Lake Park's installation. This is actually the exact panel. This is what it looks like on the roof. That's the racking system with the ballasted blocks that are there. Again, it barely sits anywhere more than 10 inches off the ground, and you cannot see it from really any angle at all. Their production is about 38% of their utility bills went away. That's a higher picture of the Lake Park West, what the roof looks like. That was what east during the installation. You could see all the ballast blocks were set up, and the racking was laid. This is a design that we put together for your middle school, potentially leaving out areas that either are not facing south or leaving space in case the structure couldn't handle everything. We don't want to pack it completely. We made that mistake when we first started packing the building, and then realizing that not every square inch of the building can handle the solar panels. But roughly we could be putting on about a 750 kW system on the school here. And that's with an average wattage panel. So if we were able to get a bigger wattage panel, that would increase the production. We also looked at a ground mount potential over at Prairie. Again, depending on the panel, anywhere from 560 kW up to 750 as well.
That's behind the building, right?
Yes. Yep.
Sense of the scope of that, that's an acre, 2 acres right there?
No, I believe that's much smaller than 2. It's definitely smaller than 2 acres. Maybe an acre at the
It's
moment.
probably 2, that'd be my guess. We can measure it out and find out for sure.
And this was a rough design.
It's a pretty good sized field though. I mean, it'd be a great space for, kids don't use it because it goes out by the tracks anyhow.
Yeah.
Yeah, no houses, no.
School own all that space, and it's not buildable space right now or anything.
Because on the top of their line, that's about where the kids stop playing now. Because you can see the shadowing of the building there.
Yeah, kind of, yeah.
You know what, if you look down here, it's a little clear. I apologize for that. Again, we have not been out to that area. We haven't done any analysis, so exactly knowing how much we could fit in there. If it was 2 acres and we could pack it in, you're going to get a much larger system than what I'm showing right here. But we were just taking, you know, kind of just a quick guess. I just letting you see that there is definitely some options out I wanted to show you quick what we would present, which is our
Those
work.
two schools we looked at?
Those are the only two schools we looked at so far, yes. We do have the utility bills on the entire district, and so we do know what your consumption is, and what in each building, and if there's opportunity to look at more, doing the helioscopes is very easy. We might be able to find some other buildings that make sense, or other ground areas.
So you said on average, a school district can save close to 30% on their utility bills for a year?
I believe you'd be saving more than that. I actually have that right here. It's the second page. Yeah, we took out the. Sorry. I believe you're closer to 60% because it's an elementary district, and if you think about it, your consumption is a lot less than what a high school would consume, but your space and area and the wattage of panels, we can still increase it quite a bit. I don't have that exact number.
A lot of that comes from the fact that at night our schools close.
Exactly.
Whereas the high school, they're open almost 24/7.
Yep.
Right, I'm like a football game with the field lights on and.
Yeah.
We don't have a lot of the stuff they have.
Practice going on.
Right.
This example quickly is of the Warren Township project that we just submitted. They're consuming around 7.7 million kW. We'd be able to put on, between the two roofs and the two ground mounts that we were proposing, 4.5, almost 4.6 million kW. They have a very extremely low utility rate, so their energy savings are quite low compared to what they should be because they pay such a low utility rate. We know that rate will grow quite a bit when the smart grids hit, so they're going to see some big savings. But demand savings, energy savings is roughly $250,000 a year. Demand savings would take place in the year 2 at around $45,000. SREC income also, where we would predict that by year 2, at the worst case, that they'd have SREC income at around 50 or $55 a rec, and that equates to 2 years of not making a payment using a debt lease option. They actually are $800,000 positive through year 2. Now, you would go through a period of time where they're going to be not making money each year, but because they made so much money out of the gate that they're staying positive all the way through, which is that cumulative savings. And once the project was paid off, however they decide to use the lease or a debt, that number will jump back up to $800,000, and you could look at over $7 million worth of net savings in 30 years. Yep. The panels themselves are warranted for 25 years with an 80% production. So what that means is you're getting your standard warranty on manufacturing. The actual panel is a year, racking is 10, inverters are 10, but the panel comes with a 25-year production warranty that says 25 years from now, that panel will be producing at least 80%. We've already derated the panel in our model, probably 15, maybe even 16% off the bat, just for taking into account, again, weather, shading, all the different things that would go into it. And a panel itself really never produces at 100%, except for the one day it's on the assembly line when they do the sun test. So all that in, the model still works, and this is potentially what we could show something for you guys as well. Net positive, starting from the beginning, all the way through, including all financing costs.
So that'd be this would be typical of a ESCO contract, right? Where you or ESCO company come in, provide this, the school district doesn't pay anything up front. You guys get a percentage of the savings, which pays for the project over so long.
That is a little different, actually. So we are a professional ESCO as well. We do not touch your savings ever. We don't have anything to do with your savings, and we hope you save 100% more than what I can predict for you. And again, we are a conservative engineering company. We do take upfront the installation costs. That is where our company makes money. We design it, we engineer it, we manage it, we install it, we commission it, and then for the next 10, 12, 15 years, we're a partner monitoring, helping make sure everything works. And that's part of our guarantees as well.
So how do we pay you though?
You pay us, I mean, we take cash, we take checks, we take
Yeah.
bank sales. No, this model I'm showing is a tax exempt lease option that's available. It's not through us, it's through, Wintrust Bank or State Bank of the Lakes
So
who.
similar to the ESCOs where you can find a bank to finance it. and
Correct.
you pay it, yeah.
So, yes, this is performance contracting, guaranteed energy savings contracting, and we're doing solar as well. So it would be the same if we did a boiler project for you. Yep. This is the web access anytime, anywhere. It actually gives you live feed. Now, when we were giving a presentation to the students at Lake Park High School after the system was up and running, we went on into their live feed, logged in, and the system said it was at 7 kilowatts. What's going on? Well, it turned out that there was a huge cloud at that moment right over the school. 10 minutes later, we looked again, and it was back up to 750 kilowatts. And it was really kind of cool to see that it's literally a graph just like that and shows you all the different spikes. In the morning, it's going to start at low. If it's a nice sunny day, you're going to see it peak. There's a bell curve. It keeps track of all the historic data. You can go back as far as you want. And this is also important because it helps you know where you're at in generating income on your SRECs. Because the SRECs are paid out every 500,000 kW produced, you get a check. And so you want to obviously know how often and when you're getting those checks.
Chris would be on it every day.
Yeah, you'll see, minute by minute.
The curriculum piece is huge. We've partnered with NEED, which is a national organization that does solar kits and challenges and really gets hands-on with the students. So there's an opportunity to do that. The monitoring is included. This is an add-on, but it's a really good program that a lot of kids are really enjoying. Our company has been around for 17 years. We're based out of Indiana. We opened a branch office here 5 years ago in Illinois. I left Johnson Controls and started the branch, and we've done over $100 million worth of guaranteed energy contracts in the last 4.5 years. So we're very familiar with the market. We're very familiar with the districts. Everything we do is open book pricing. We show you what all of our costs are. We show you what all the contractor pricing was. We let you pick and choose a lot in terms of which manufacturer, which panel potentially you'd want to go with. And we try to be as open and transparent as possible. And we guarantee everything we do, and that's written into our contracts. So just a little. Yes, sir.
Are there any batteries associated with this versus storage?
That's a great question. So we would not want you to produce more than 100%. Because one, batteries aren't tested yet, they're very expensive, and two, ComEd would give you an infinite credit on your bill, which you'd never get back. So the good thing about Illinois is you can aggregate. So if you have a building or a ground mount that is well above where you want to be and where you need to be, but maybe one of the other buildings can't handle as much, it'll aggregate throughout. You are considered a district. Even though you'd have separate locations for each and different meters for each, you could aggregate throughout the whole thing. So that's really a key because of, again, some areas you can really pack it in. Again, that ground mount area, potentially we could really pack it in there. You would overproduce what you're consuming at that school, but it would count as a district-wide thing.
I was gonna ask that question. So the energy produced at any one location, is that consumed at that location? Or is all the energy produced fed to the grid, metered out at the site, and then consumption is just metered like it always has been?
It's both.
Both.
So in the summer, obviously, and especially in elementary, your buildings are going to be used, but nearly your consumption is going to be way down compared to what it would be in the winter. In the summer, that's when you're going to produce the most solar. So the meters are actually going to spin backwards in the summer when you're producing the most, and they're going to keep track. And then obviously, it's a year-long thing. It's not every day, okay, did we use some of our power, we didn't, okay. In the winter, when you're using and consuming more, that's when the meters catch back up. Overall, we would be guaranteeing you the production for the entire year. Whatever the nameplate production of the system that we put in, that's what we'd be guaranteeing. I put on here just the next steps, just so you understand the process again. Site analysis would still be needed if a decision to move forward would come from the district. Roof and structural analysis still would need to be done, obviously identifying locations and buildings and all the different things. At this point, all we've done is take your utility bills and analyze them to know what your consumption is and quickly pick 2 buildings just to look at for a location. An RFP would be placed. It's a competitive RFP through the CDB, which is the Capital Development Board website, where you would get multiple competitors responding to your RFP. You'd pick a certified and select a qualified partner. You actually award a contract and move forward with kind of a not to exceed. Solar's a little different than most projects. You kind of award the contract and know where you're going to be with a not to exceed number, and then you finalize actually all the project costs. Because structural, again, the analysis, structure, figuring out all the racking, a lot of that goes into it, and there's costs associated with it. So knowing that the project is going forward and the company you're working with, and this doesn't apply to us, this would apply to all the other
So we would
companies
set
as
a
well.
max dollar amount and everything would have to come in underneath that.
Exactly, yeah. Now, unforeseen, minus changes by the district, but otherwise, it would all be highly budgeted numbers. That Warren project is exactly what we're doing with them, hopefully getting a contract a week from yesterday. Complete the project costs and design, and then obviously the SREC market. Now, what has changed since I started is the SREC market. Originally, we would bid on the SRECs and then fill in the project, but because it's gotten so competitive, they prefer projects to be built, you producing power, and then they'll backfill you. So you can produce power, you may not get SRECs for a year or 6 months or 2 years even, but you're producing energy and they're monitoring and we're metering that. As soon as the SRECs market would secure for the district, you'd actually start getting checks faster. So the timing of the SRECs isn't as important anymore. It used to be that was the most important thing. Now we're looking at the actual, the installation itself.
Now, with the roof design, what impact does that have on heating and cooling of the building itself?
Mhm.
And any type of lifespan for
Sure.
the building?
So I don't have exact data yet. We hope to, in the future, tell you exactly how long those lives will, of the roof. We know, based on the industry and talking to other people, that you will get extra life out of your roof. If you think of it, the direct sunlight is gone. You're putting solar panels on, it's taking the direct sunlight. It will extend the life of the roof. In terms of insulating, less heat loss and less, really in the summer, less AC loss because you have those panels on top of the roof really deflecting everything. So you should actually help offset some costs, very small, but potentially some energy savings in regards to that.
I have about 26 questions, so.
Okay,
Ready?
good.
All right, so-
I think that was it for
Was
the.
that it? Okay.
I can go back to any, I figure from here I can click on something if you need me to see it.
All right, so some of them are basic, like what part of Indiana are you guys based in?
The company is based in Indianapolis,
Okay.
so Carmel. I'm local.
Okay.
We're Schaumburg, is our office.
So how long, so I'm familiar with Johnson Controls.
Yeah.
We do some stuff with them. But, so that program you talked about with the STEM, that's kind of like the project-based learning, where you will be teaching some of the youth through our program about the solar panels and.
We do presentations, but that program is actually done on a national level. So yeah, they send, they teach the teachers basically how to do it. And what we've heard is maybe the first year, maybe even the first 2, until the teachers really understand it, then they kind of design their own kits and you can go away from having to pay for that system. But yes, there are STEM programs, there are on-site monitoring. You could set up a kiosk, which would give you live feeds and tell you exactly what the system is doing. We can tie stuff into your control system. We don't have a proprietary control line, so we work with Johnson, we work with Siemens, we work with Amherst, we work with everybody.
Yeah. So if we decided to do this, the board can make a decision to have Buy USA, so it could come from the United States.
Absolutely. You would get, at least from us, you would get 2 or 3 different manufacturers to choose from, and it would really come down to the cost. In our process, which is that performance contracting, you are not bound by low bids. Typically, people do go with the low bids, but by any means, if you have a strong reason to go a different direction, you are more than welcome to do that. We would show you all the numbers and let the district decide.
But what about local hiring and local participation of the contractors that's doing the installation?
For almost everything we do, solar is a little difficult because in Illinois, you have to be certified to do solar installations. And the only way you get certified is to do 3 installations. So it's really
A
catch
person
22.
or a company?
Both. So if you have one individual of a company that is certified, that would count for the company. But we look at their bonding capacity and everything.
Yeah.
But yes, ideally, we always hire local.
But you know, I deal with a lot of contractors, so I know it's ways to lower packages, certain packages, in order to make sure that some local companies get involved with the work. You know, I mean, it's a lot of money being spent.
Couldn't agree more. And in our process, we show you what all the bids are, and we open up to a lot of different people. We use Continental to do the installation at Grays Lake.
I
We
know-
used a different group for Lake Park. We're using a different group for the Valley View district.
What about, I know we're dealing with elementary district, but, you know, we feed into a high school district, and the high school have a tech campus. Is it any opportunity for training for any of, like, our construction-related programs or youth builds or anything like that in our area?
Absolutely. We are looking to hire. We have basically started an entire division of our company around solar. So if there are the right students coming out of the tech campus or
I've worked with youth build, and we've had some students trained and moved to Texas to work on wind tunnels. So we have 2 youth builds in our area, and that'd be a great opportunity for them to have some educational learning opportunities and further job opportunities.
Absolutely. We're in Indiana, Wisconsin, Michigan,
they have
Kentucky,
youth builds, yeah.
Arkansas, Texas, Illinois. We're growing pretty rapidly.
All right, 2 more questions.
Sure.
Then I'm turning it over to somebody else. All right, so we put it on the roof and a school closed for whatever reason. The board had to make a decision whether to close the school or not. What if we decide to close that school? How would that impact this type of program that we may look at for 30 years?
Sure. I would say solar is one of the situations where whether the school closes or not, you're going to be in a good spot. Unlike putting on a large chiller on a building, you're not going to get that back, and nobody's going to come take it and put it somewhere else. Solar, every piece there's a resale market. In fact, panels that were produced 5-6 years ago, people are replacing those because they're only maybe 250 watts, and now you get 350 watts. You take those panels out, the system itself. So the racking, the inverters, the panels themselves can be moved, and they can also have a resale.
So if a school closed, we wouldn't be able to still get power and share it with the other schools?
Oh, no, you still would. If you left it there, the school closed, and you left it there, nothing
You'd
would
still be
change.
able to
You would
share.
just have no consumption in that building. You'd still be producing your own power.
For the other schools?
Correct.
Okay. All right, as far as your company, how do we procure you?
That's part of that competitive RFP process. So we would have to respond to the RFP. My competitors would do the same thing. You would select based on not only potential price, but also the quality of the company and who the district wants to work with. But it's a
Responsible and-
formal process that is all done through the Capital Development Board.
I'm satisfied. Sorry, some of the questions.
Yes, sir.
I think you said that a ground mount is preferable. Yeah, we're still talking about roof mounts, I'm trying to figure out what.
Well, what's difficult for most schools is space, right? So land and space. If you have open land, or you have the ability to procure land, or you have retention or detention areas, and civil says we can do it, and the county says we can do it, then that is an ideal situation. Most school districts don't have any space, so that's why the roof mount. Now, what's the best bang is combining. Grays Lake is at 2.7 megawatts because they did 2 roofs and a ground. Lake Park hasn't done a ground yet, so that's why they're only at 1.8 megawatts. So it really depends on how much you want to produce, how much of your utility bills you want to offset. You will offset more with the ground, but both of them will do, I mean, either one will work, and combining the two of them is the best solution. Yes, sir.
So you mentioned about 6 years ago, people bought panels that they're now replacing because of increases in capacity. Is there kind of a Moore's law for solar panels that you're seeing? I mean, will we be replacing ours in 6 years?
Only if you wanted to. There's no reason to, but except that there's a new SREC market that started. Potentially 6, 7, 8 years from now, you could replace that 350 watt panel with a 450 watt panel and get new SRECs. So that you'd make more money on the SRECs, and you would be able to probably sell those panels at 50 cents on the dollar, so you'd make money there. And all you do is, the system itself, the racking, isn't gonna change. You don't have to move that. So it's literally unplugging the panel, a little more complicated, but unplugging the panel, taking that panel off, and putting the new panel in. That's why there's such a big resale market. We can find panels that are used. At Grays Lake High School, we went through this. There was a big out east insurance claim on a huge solar field. They did over 10,000 panels. They only had one inverter. What that means is you can't put multiple panels to one inverter. You can put different inverters and then have multiple types of panels. But if you only have one inverter, well, 20% of the panels were damaged. They had to scrap all 10,000 because they only had one inverter. We do multiple inverters in our installation. But the bottom line is we were able to secure those panels at 50 cents on the dollar, actually even closer to 60 cents. And we use those for the ground mount at Grays Lake. Now, technically, they're 2-year-old panels, but all that meant was they went through the thermal cycle. We tested every single one. They all work. The district was able to save quite a bit of money by doing that. They didn't come with the manufacturer's warranty, but they bought some extra supply, and we gave some guarantees, and it was a win for the district. So to answer your question, there's a lot of market, there's a lot of opportunity. I'm not recommending that you replace it in 5 or 6 years. I'm saying you could get very creative with solar, and then the market's not going to go away. You could potentially replace your panels with higher wattage panels, especially if they keep growing as fast as they are.
Yeah, consider like Woodview, where we're not gonna have any space on the ground. All right, we put 300 watt panels on there, and 5 years from now, SREX is going great. We can upgrade to a $450 watt panel, creating more energy for the building. As the panels grow, you have opportunity to get rid of the panels. I wouldn't say make anything, but at least break even on them.
Right.
Have you had any experience with end of life of these solar panels? Like what happens, how long do they last? They're warranted for 25 years.
They're warranted for 25 years, but there's panels that were produced in the 60s that are still producing solar power today. They will produce power. Now, it continually will gradually decrease. In the model that we run, we put a degradation of 0.5% a year. That's probably a little high, but we're conservative. But I have not been around long enough to see any end of life. But I do know there are panels from the 60s that are still producing today. The technology hasn't changed. So it's a crystalline panel, and really what's changed is the manufacturing and the material that they put the solar panels in. That's where a lot of the costs have drastically been reduced.
Any other questions? No, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Do you have any more than I got?
Do you have a card?
Hey, Chris, do you have that presentation by chance? Yeah. Okay.
Okay, so next is the board reports. Anybody have anything they'd like to discuss or talk about? Kind of coming into the end of the year here.
I was on CLC Thursday night, they have an annual display of everything from 3D to printing to all kinds of technical things of that nature. One of the things I noticed is that St. Gilbert's Elementary School had a programming this is all based upon 1, 2, 2, 3, done whole. But I didn't realize that the 4-H, now to me, the 4-H, I'm a farm boy, that's calves and pigs and that sort of thing. But through the 4-H building, this morning, Parking on Daily Works, they have a program where elementary kids can, or anybody can work with them for a programming, after-school type thing, or whatever. I just, would that be somewhere I want to just look into as a teacher that wants to do that or whatever. I know that a year ago, out at Park campus, there was an attempt was made anyway to start with a programming situation with there was an employee of Baxter who was sort of gung-ho on that. I don't know if that's still going or not. But I'm just saying there are things locally that we should tie into or look into it.
Okay.
I have something. All right, so I'm excited about the 8th grade dance at Park coming up this Friday. I'll be DJing. My wife's making me do a
You say
whole
you
lot
were a
of.
DJ?
Yeah, I DJ.
I might have to come out and see this.
He's pretty awesome at it.
Yeah, I DJ'd a senior prom for the seniors like a couple of weeks ago. It was nice. I got to dance with some old seniors and stuff. So that should be pretty exciting. But one of the things I did want to mention, and I mentioned some of them during the presentation, is that it's been a big push on trying to make sure that, especially with the decrease in our budget, with our budget issues at the state, and the possibilities of uncertainty in the district and throughout the county. I think as a board we should look at some of those programs, maybe by USA, or work with our tech campus and some of these local training programs that benefit some of our young people in order to get them job ready when we do construction projects. I know it's not easy and all the time we can utilize that, but if we have ways to do that, I think we should come up with a process that you say, hey, work with Youth Build, work with YCC, work with the tech campus. If we can train 1 or 2 or 3 kids, young people, a time that we have a major construction project, we can really create some income for them later on in life. So I think that's something that's a board we should think about coming up with some real policies toward it. So.
One other thing, the foundation bought some materials for various buildings, but Park campus was one, and Tim Timmons invited me out. I'm going out there Friday morning to see what kids are doing with some of that stuff that was bought, whatever. So the point is, there's a lot of exciting things going on in this district.
You said Tim
It's
Timmons?
neat.
Tim Timmons.
Okay. What Tim Dims?
Kevin?
It's like Carl Carlson,
Yeah.
John Johnson.
Jason? No? Okay. Superintendent report?
Well, this was our last late start this morning, and very pleased with the amount of work that has gone on over these late starts. Very excited about the progress we've made in all the curriculum areas. And music in the parks over this last weekend. Music in the Parks is at Great America, where they have schools from Wisconsin, Indiana, Minnesota, Illinois, and they have a 2-day music festival. And there were 38 performing ensembles ranging from class divisions of single A and double A bands. The Grays Lake Middle School Ladies Honor Select received first place, Superior Class double A. The middle school 8th grade treble choir received first place, Superior Class AA. The Grays Lake Middle School 7th grade treble choir received second place, Superior Class AA. The Grays Lake Wind Ensemble, first place, Superior Class AA. The Symphonic Band, first place. The Jazz Ensemble, first place. And overall grand champion awards to Grays Lake Wind Ensemble in the concert band division. The Jazz Ensemble also got another award. The Vocal Solos award went to 8th grade soprano Paola Tostado and alto soloist Elise Rogers. So great job in the music department. In Prairie View, we had a Jump for Heart this last week, and they raised over $5,000 for the American Heart Association. So
Nice.
as you're saying, a lot of great things happening in our buildings, and I know there's more that I just don't have to report.
I just saw this a few months ago. Several of us marched in a parade downtown. We're going to do that again this year?
Yes, April, listen to me, August 19th, get ready for that. We're going to have, last year we had Grays Lake Middle School Band, and this year we're going to have some, hopefully, from Park as well, so.
Great.
We may be playing the same song, but we'll
Over
be there.
and over and over again?
Yes.
Okay.
You all are invited. I'm trying to get Mr. Bobek to join us, but,
He's gonna do it in a suit.
yes.
Incorrect.
I'm just picking on Chris.
Your neighbors may be in the crowd and they may say things to you you can't respond to.
I'm used to that. All right, so next is our approval of the consent agenda.
I make a motion.
Second.
Northern,
Aye.
Parkinson,
Aye.
LaCroy,
Aye.
Mesco,
Aye.
Weedman.
Aye. Okay, next we are going to move on to our action items. First one is a motion to approve a community partnership board committee.
And I was thinking, when you both, David and Tom, were talking about forming partnerships with other groups, that would fit in under this committee. Once that committee would create some, parameters on how we would do all of that, I think, so.
So move.
Second.
Weedman,
Aye.
Mesco,
Aye.
Parkinson,
Aye.
Northern,
Aye.
LaCroy.
Aye.
Okay, next item is a motion to approve the addition of a .5 FTE math specialist at Frederick for the 2017-2018 school year.
We hear the superintendent's recommendations again on this?
Sure.
We'll have the superintendent and the
Well,
business official, but,
Should we talk about all three of these at once?
Yeah,
And then we
that's
can,
probably
then we can hit them all.
yeah.
I can start. Obviously, I spoke via phone at the last board meeting, talking about our financial situation and the viability of actually hiring additional staff for next year. Our current position and where we're at, it is not a financially stable move to be adding people. Once again, when we talk about things that we would like to add to the districts, we would like that sustainability piece, and had we, or if this were to pass, there certainly wouldn't be something next year that we'd be able to hold on to. So at this point in time, the recommendation from me, just based solely on finances, obviously it's something that we'd like to do, just in general, it would be great if we were able to afford it, but solely based on finances, I cannot make the recommendation to approve these,
all three of them?
all three of them.
It's always a challenge from our end, that we know what students need, but we have to balance it with our
Financial.
finances. And that's a challenge.
Well, I support the ideas of these, and I support the ideas of a lot of other ideas too, but there are sometimes facts and figures point elsewhere, and I think they do at this time for us.
Is there any plan that we might have in place to try to offset this decision?
I'm sorry,
If they feel that they need a math specialist, what do we have in place to try to offset our decision to not hire?
Well,
As
I'm
far
not-
as giving them the resources they need?
we'd have to work through that. I assume, and David's here, but I assume he was hoping that was what was going to happen. So we would have to look at, is there something we can, and can the
Eliminate
instructional
one.
coach help? Pardon me?
Eliminate one or to gain another somewhere else.
Right. I think over the summer, we're gonna have to take a really hard look at all of our staffing in all areas, and is there a way to make some changes, not next year, but the year following, so that we can address these needs, like the math specialists and PE, and that type of thing. So is there another way to reduce so that we can use those funds another way? I didn't see Mr. Bobek nodding his head, but.
It's a difficult decision for
is.
us on this side of the board, and even for you guys to make that type of a recommendation, knowing that it's what it's what the school is identified as a need, and B is what would probably be best for the students as a whole. But when you start having to balance finances versus need or wants, it's difficult. There's a lot of things we want to do. We've talked about all-day kindergarten, we've talked about one-to-one programming, we've talked about PE classes, we've talked about everything under the sun, as far as adding to the curriculum and adding what's best for the students. We still have to balance money, and that's the hard part of sitting at this table, to be able to make those decisions.
The
We'd
hardest,
love, okay, I'm sorry, go ahead.
the hardest thing you can do is give something and take it away.
That's my biggest,
right.
yes. My biggest fear is that we put this in and then next year I'm sitting here saying, I need to recommend that we eliminate this or eliminate this program.
Well, and that's why I said, well, to your point, then how can we shift the
Right.
resources we have?
Right.
And so that's,
That's what we're gonna
What I
have to
wanna
take a
make
look
sure.
at, yes.
Okay. So this, I believe, can happen in one of two ways. We can fail to have a motion to approve, and it would die. Or we can have a motion to approve and a second, and then vote it down. So I will ask again, if there is a motion to approve the addition of the .5 FTE math specialist at Frederick for the 17-18 school year.
So moved.
Second.
Okay?
LaCroy,
Nay.
Weedman,
No.
Masco,
No.
Northern,
No.
Parkinson.
nay.
Okay, a motion to approve the addition of a 1.0 FTE math specialist at Park for the 2017-2018 school year.
I thought we was doing them all together.
No, we gotta do them separately.
Yeah.
So moved.
Second.
LaCroy,
Nay.
Northern,
Nay.
Weedman,
Nay.
Parkinson,
Nay.
Masco.
Nay.
Motion to approve the addition of a 2.0 FTE PE teachers at the K through 4 buildings to allow for daily physical education classes.
So moved.
Second.
Northern,
Nay.
LaCroy,
Nay.
Parkinson,
Nay.
Masco,
Nay.
Weedman.
Nay. Okay, the next is to approve a major impact purchase for Grays Lake Middle School for 35 Chromebooks at the cost of $9,065.
I make that motion.
Second.
And correct me if I didn't read it right, but this was coming out of building funds that had been kind of year-end kind of allotments.
Yes.
And this will create another Chromebook lab for the district for various different reasons, testing and data use and everything. Okay.
Weedman,
Aye.
Masco,
Aye.
Parkinson,
Aye.
LaCroy,
Aye.
Northern.
Aye.
Okay, the next is the second reading and motion to approve the following policies. 2:125, which is board member compensation / expenses. I get compensated for this?
Say, wait a minute, I missed that.
I missed that part. Just had a check for 4 years.
It's on the Lehman Brothers credit card.
Yeah, sorry. 2:125-AP1, board member expense reimbursement form, which Chris made. 2:260, uniform grievance procedure. 5:60, district staff expenses. 5:60-AP, which is another form that Chris created.
Right, and those expenses are, that's a new law by the state that we have to abide by. And the uniform grievance procedure was just a removal of one name as a grievance person and adding another person.
An actual person's name or a title?
A person's name,
Oh,
yeah,
person.
left the district.
We had one person leave the district and we put Lucky Paul in
Yeah.
charge of grievances. So, it's how can you be mad at him? He's always smiling. Does anybody have any questions on those,
I'm filing a grievance.
those policies and those forms? No? Can I have a motion to approve?
Motion. Second.
Parkinson,
Aye.
LaCroy,
Aye.
Masco,
Aye.
Northern,
Aye.
Weedman.
Aye. Next is a motion to approve the expulsion of student 2017-A until June 6th of 2017. I'll second.
Masco,
Aye.
Parkinson,
Aye.
LaCroy,
Aye.
Northern,
Abstain.
Weedman.
Aye. Okay, then we'll move on to unfinished business. These are unresolved issues that were previously brought before the board And items will be discussed, but no action will be taken at this meeting. So the first one is the board governance.
In a,
Discussion board.
yeah, a previous meeting, Stephen had mentioned trying to move forward with our district earning the school board governance recognition. And it's a 2-year process. And we would be starting soon. One of them would be that meeting with the IASB representative, Barbara Toney. So I still need to hear from 2 people on whether they're available. You're one of them. And you're the other. So October 3rd or October 25th, and I don't know whether Barbara's dates are still open there, but that was the other to it. Didn't mean to call you out.
That's all right. Not the first person's called me out today. October,
Look like it's good for me.
Okay, October 3rd,
When was the-
25th. October 25th.
3rd is the best one for me. I'm on shift on the 25th.
Okay,
They both look good for me. so-
okay, good.
I said they both look good.
Yes,
right?
yeah. So included in your board packet was all the things that we need to go through to earn that. You know, and I think that the first step would be obviously to meet with Barbara Toney. But then I think, you know, it gives a pretty steps to handle this. And also I had put in there, I had attended a workshop on 10 steps to good governance. And just, that really goes hand in hand with what we, on the recognition. So I think Stephen felt pretty strongly that he would like to have the board attempt to earn this recognition. And if everybody's sort of okay with that, then we can start this process and things, you know, what things we need to do. So they're all good things to do. We
Makes us
already
better,
have
right?
weekly updates, so we're at the first steps taken care of. Is there anybody who isn't willing to go that route? Okay, then we'll start the process and,
Just a comment, I've seen a lot of boards operate in my lifetime and then also in my career. And I think this board does a lot of things right, and they only get even better.
yeah, I think so.
And it's time we recognize that.
Yeah, right. Agree. All right, then I'll get that started and then I'll put in a timeline what we need to do and
Okay.
we'll start looking at it.
All right, the next is a discussion of extending the auditor's contract. Speak, Chris.
Yeah, discussion at the last board meeting was about length of contract and about some concerns over a 5-year contract and putting some language into that contract stating that we can withdraw. The company that we use, Ader, was very agreeable to doing this, so they added language stating that we can withdraw at any time from the engagement without completion of services. So that gives us the out.
Repeat that again? Withdraw at any time without what?
Either party reserves the right to withdraw from the engagement without completing services for any reason, including but not limited to failure to comply with terms of service.
Without penalty, no early
Without
term
penalty.
penalty, anything like that?
Correct.
Okay.
I think that,
I missed the last discussion, so could you just catch me up real quick?
yeah, sure. Our contract with our auditors is up. The company that we've used for the past 5 years. It's a company that we really like. They're the ones that got us in line. They were, quite frankly, a kind of a step up from the last company that we used. They offered us a 1-year, 3-year, or 5-year with varying prices. Obviously, the 5-year is going to be the lowest cost. It would be lower than what we're paying right now. So my recommendation was to go with the longer-term contract to save a little bit of money. And then there were some concerns about, you know, what if the company, what if they're not performing up to our standards? How can we get an out clause in there? So we went ahead and approached the company, and they went ahead and put in that out clause for us.
Okay.
Chris, in your experience, do they send the same people out to work with us all the time? Do they have the same
They rotate.
manager?
They rotate. This year will be a new group of people, although it's they'll move somebody in and then move somebody out. There's some
Continuity.
more often than not, there's 2 rather than 3 people, and then you'll have somebody who's a senior, somebody who came in, and then they'll shift them out. So they rotate them around from different schools just to keep it fresh and get new eyes on it.
I remember we had 5 or 6 different spots that we needed to improve when we first started.
We're now down to
I
1.
think
Down to 1, which is a consistent one.
Right, that every
That's-
district has.
Right. So as far as our audit goes, it's drastically improved. You know, they've given Chris suggestions on how to change things up so we can get those off of our negative on the audit.
And it was one of those things where the previous vendor didn't have any blips, and then the new vendor came in and said, no, wait a second here, we're seeing quite a few things that aren't necessarily what you're supposed to be doing. So they kind of straightened us out and got us in line, which, you know, it's a little bit of work, but as long as we're in line, I think it was a good decision to go with the company.
Are there firms that specialize in
School districts?
Or is it divisions of the big ones, or?
You know, I think this firm that we're using right now is more geared towards school districts. I think there's kind of a big three that a lot of school districts use with some smaller offshoots.
So we move that one forward? We need to have a vote on that, or we just?
Uh,
Next, our
next
next
board
meeting, we'll
meeting.
have a,
Okay. That's what I meant, moving it forward. Okay, next is new business. These are new issues for the board to discuss. No action will be taken at this meeting. So the first one is discussion of summer school offerings.
at our last curriculum meeting, Tom had asked us if we could just do a brief outline of what summer school program we have. We have the Frederick Summer Academy, which offers elected classes to both enrichment, art, sports, as well as some of the remedial classes. Those classes programs are paid for by the parents. We also have the extended school year program for special education students, and those are for students who, without continued programming throughout the summer, would regress to a point where they would have to basically start over the next year. So they have some programming there involved, usually in reading and math. The students are taught in both whole and small group, and where they have a special education teacher. We also have here at GMS, we have summer school for students who have not made the academic progress expected throughout the year. They also do that at Park. Last year you didn't have any, but that's always open if there are. So both schools go an extra step to try to help kids be successful. Title I, that is a summer reading program for the Avon students who are involved in Title I programming. So they continue to work on their reading and writing skills. And then we have the English language summer school offered to any student who is an incoming kindergartner through 8th grader and is currently participating in the English learner program, or who has exited in the program over the past 2 years. So they have a 3-week session, and that's also held at Avon. So those are the programs. There's a lot of kids involved in the summer. And it starts right after school is over, so there's no real break.
Did you mention any coding last summer?
They had coding, I do have in the board packet, it's a list of some of the programs, and I don't know whether there was coding in there this time, but
Okay.
yeah, they usually do have some coding. So.
Okay. Next is the review of the PE standards.
And Amanda was going to provide that, but she had a little accident on her way home, and Jim
She
happened to
okay?
be there. She's got a little neck problem, so she just texted me and said, please extend her apologies to the rest of the board that she was unable to be here, but she just got home from the hospital.
I gave her an excuse to.
So, Paul, hopefully he's still smiling.
So I'm stepping in as a substitute because this was Amanda's presentation. So I freely admit that this is her presentation as well. And I'm going to give her all the credit for all of the clip art and all of the cute things about the presentation. So just, I'm laying it out there that it's all Amanda.
You didn't do that, Paul.
I didn't. I could probably, but I didn't. There was a question at a recent board meeting for us to learn a little bit more about the new state physical education goals. So if anybody, I can speak about it because in the past it was also something I worked on as well. So this was the big information that in 2012 the state of Illinois pushed the state to have an enhanced PE work task force. And so there were members of lots of different stakeholders who came together to help with that. Anyone use that?
Yeah, I can set it up if you want to be hands-free.
Thank you for helping me with that. And then it keeps going on to say how the task force worked and how they organized all the information. And then the state board actually approved the new enhanced PE standards for physical education and health. And so that put us all to work and to learn about the new enhanced PE standards for PE and health. Really, the whole big idea about the enhanced PE task force is about better health, better learners, better behaviors. And so they see that as a cycle for kids and for adults, interestingly, about better health being physical fitness, reduced risk of disease, less stress, improved mental health. I was thinking about these things when Dr. Belmonte was here as well, talking about the community outreach and the health issues as well. One of the interesting things about the enhanced PE standards is to help kids understand how your brain actually functions during fitness experiences, and how the brain actually controls so many of the things. So even starting at the very young grades, they talk about your brain development and how it actually changes with physical activity and movement and motor experiences. And then we also know, and we've discussed this in the past, about how important it is for many of our students to be physically active and moving, either through mind breaks or through physical activities. The goal, though, the goal of enhanced PE standards is to really move away from sports and to go into fitness. And so you'll see a lot of ideas about that. It's all about fitness or health related instead of necessarily sports, teams, all those kind of things. The third bullet talks about teamwork and cooperation, so that hits onto some SEL kind of concepts, social emotional learning concepts. And then also that whole idea that it's a wellness approach. You're looking at a well-rounded student to be able to learn a little bit more about nutrition and health and wellness. Again, those are things that Dr. Belmonte was emphasizing. So what are the enhanced PE standards? Interestingly, for PE, it starts with goal number 19 in the state of Illinois. So PE starts at 19, so we're starting at 19. This one is about movement and motor skills. Again, you can see there's 3 sub-goals of that major state goal, specifically about movement and motor skills. This is really where they hit maybe on sports. If you see 19C, it says demonstrate knowledge of rules, safeties, and strategy. So rules, they do want kids to still be able to understand the rules of games and sports, but really the emphasis is more on lifelong sports that kids might choose to participate in above and beyond and outside of school. Does that make sense to everybody? Goal number 20 is all about physical fitness based on continual self-assessment. So it really is the whole goal that you identify where you are at this moment, and then you learn some strategies of how to do self-improvement. So it doesn't necessarily have to be that everyone has to reach a certain bar to be successful. It's all about growth over time. I hope that makes sense to everybody. Interestingly, this goal 21, develop skills necessary to become a successful member of a team by working with others during physical activity. So this also alludes to sports, but it also can just be group games and group experiences for how kids work together, deal with issues, deal with different levels of ability, all of those things. So again, it gets into cooperation in structured group physical activity. That doesn't necessarily mean just go free play. It means with guidance and direction and support, encouraging, modeling, all those kind of things. The goal 22 is all about health promotion and prevention and treatment of injury and illness. So looking at the bigger picture about health and wellness
health promotion, all of those things. It does go into other things that can impact your health, how your environment and other decisions that you make can also influence your health. So you can see how it is more than just physical activity, it's also obviously the health component. This one, goal 23, is probably the most significant change in the enhanced PE. In the past in Illinois, the study of the human body was actually considered in the science curriculum. When Illinois adopted the next generation science standards, that became an issue because the next generation science standards have completely removed the human body from science. So that was a big shift in Illinois. And so under this one, it really means those used to be science units where kids would learn about the skeletal system or the muscular system or the respiratory system in science class. That's actually shifted to the responsibility of the PE teacher, with the understanding of how do the muscles help you with fitness? How do the bones help you with fitness? How does your respiratory system help you with your fitness? And so it's all definitely related back to fitness experiences and how you can help or improve all of those systems in your body.
Does that change as they get older, though, as far as just biology?
Yes. We do start with younger kids with the non-controversial topics or the non-challenging topics, where we start with the skeletal system and move into the muscular, and then eventually we do talk about reproductive.
No, I just mean in general, like at what point, because you're saying the new science standards doesn't cover biology, but that's a science.
Oh,
that,
well, yeah.
No, well, biology is,
Yeah, go ahead.
those are still covered in about cells and all of those. That's still going to be covered. But the specific study of the human body is not incorporated.
I know it doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but.
And interestingly, one of the most important body systems that the enhanced PE standards talk about is the brain, because they talk about how much the brain needs physical activity and movement and opportunities to do those things. Interestingly, many PE teachers have read a book called Spark, and the teachers here in this district have read that last year, and it's all about how research has proven that if kids have physical activity before assessments, they often do, it was proven that they do better on the assessment if they've had an opportunity to get up and move or get their heart rate moving, increasing over time. So it's really starting at the very youngest age about helping kids understand about the connection to the brain. Very different conversations than PE teachers have had in the past, typically during PE class. Goal number 4, all is about good decision making, about what things you can do to prevent all those things like preventing conflict, and how can you promote and protect your personal and your family health issues. So again, I think there are some things that Dr. Belmonte was making some connections to about these standards as well. So the action steps that the PE staff, under Amanda's direction, she's been working very hard with the PE and health teachers. You remember that we have a PE health PDT, planning and design team, professional development team, planning and design team. There's one PE teacher or health teacher from every school on the small group making decisions moving forward. And then like today during late start, every single PE teacher across the district met together to work on the scope and sequence and our targets and our planning to unpack the standards, and we'll eventually be writing common assessments across the district. Common assessments in PE are like checklists for what we're looking for each of those targets. They're not necessarily going to be paper and pencil tests, but they're going to be performance assessments.
This came up as long as you mentioned tests. It seems to me with some of the things you're doing with the human body, you need some paper and pencil tests.
There will likely be some for the human body,
Yeah.
but specifically for fitness,
Yeah, I understand.
they're gonna be doing some pre-tests and doing some practice and giving kids an opportunity to show growth over time. With criteria to how we can help kids with all of that information. So the PE teachers have been and the health teachers have been working very hard. Today they were actually looking at some potential resources that we might consider for a purchase for next year, specifically for the health curriculum, because since that's a relatively new thing for the PE teachers to be teaching, they're comfortable with it because they have had schoolwork and training on the human body, of course, but they haven't necessarily taught it to certain grade levels of kids yet. So we wanted to provide them with some structure. So they're looking at some materials to potentially field test or to practice out to see if we can use those. This was a quote that Amanda had put in here. Those are the kind of words that we would be exposing kids to when we talk about the brain, but it's like Miracle Grow for the brain. And what it's physical fitness and movement and all of these new standards in PE. This was the presentation that Amanda wanted to share with you today to just give you an overview that PE doesn't really look like PE maybe when we were in 3rd grade or 4th grade or 8th grade. It definitely has a very different feel for what we're expecting kids to do during that PE time. I'm glad to answer any questions if I can.
Are there other states that have used this?
Illinois, these are Illinois' work because it was the enhanced PE, but they did use the research and best practices in their work.
No, I know, but I'm just wondering if there are other states that went in this direction in terms of PE.
I don't know that. I didn't do any research on that to see if other
We'll look
states,
into it.
but
Just curious how other states might be.
a lot of states have moved the fitness route.
Mhm.
I mean, that's very common in the world of PE, to move away from basketball and then volleyball and then soccer and then
Dance.
whatever other sport. And so really is all about fitness and not, we would still introduce those sports, but it'll have a lower emphasis. Any other questions? I hope this satisfied the need to learn a little bit more about the enhanced PE standards.
For what it's worth, I learned the bones of the human body in PE class in Iowa way back when.
You did?
I learned about oscalsis. I never learned any other class except PE.
Yeah, and
I learned about mine when I was breaking bones.
I was gonna say, a lot of my, I was on a gymnastics team in college, and so many of them were in physiology classes to be athletic trainers, and I can see it,
Yeah.
for sure.
Thanks, Paul, for standing in for Amanda.
Excellent.
All right, so we are up to topics for future agenda items.
At the next meeting, the Diversity Committee would like to present their preamble and the beliefs that they have established. So we would do that in the beginning. We also have, with a change of board members, need to look at the current board committees, see where we need some members and what need to be changed. The food service bids,
Food service bids are coming in Friday.
okay, so we'll need to look at that. It'll be just the first look at them, right?
The first look, I will get information out to everybody via email about how the bids came in.
And the board had approved the district goals, and we have been working on a draft of the action steps, so we'd like to have you take a look at that. And the approval of the auditor's contract.
Approval of auditor's contract. Some housekeeping. Every year we have to appoint a treasurer. It's just kind of a housekeeping thing that we have to do. We could probably put that in there as well to get it over with as early as possible. It's due June 30th, so
That would be you, right?
that would be me.
Discussion ended.
Okay. I know, we can vote on now.
Thank you, sir.
Anybody else is welcome to.
Nope.
Anything from anybody else that you'd like me to add?
I would like to, what I had mentioned earlier, to, look at a policy or a statement about America, job training, partnerships.
And I think that committee that we voted on tonight will be addressing that, but we can certainly talk.
And that actually goes to my thinking about, did you all get a chance to look at the CPS vision?
You all?
Yes. Well, I didn't say y'all. I did live in Arizona for a while. But did you have a chance to look at the vision statement, the way that CPS set it up?
Mhm.
It was very interesting because they set a 3-year vision. In other words, this is what we expect to see in 3 years. And then they had kind of, these are the numbers, and then it really kind of gave a process by which they can evaluate themselves in 3 years on their goals. And what I really liked about it was they also gave their belief statements. And I feel like with the work that we're doing in these committees, we can kind of formulate, along with our goals, what our belief statements are and make those public.
So do you want to start a process with the belief statements? With
Well, it's
board
not up to
beliefs?
me, I'm just saying.
Well, I mean,
Each committee can come up with a belief statement, right?
Well, they have several for each.
Well, we have several, right, and so, as a board and as a district, what would we want to say our beliefs are based on the work being done in the committees, the work being done in the district? It's just something I wanted to bring up.
Well, maybe we can bring something, maybe some ideas for next
Okay,
week.
that'd be great.
Anything else? Okay, next is public comments. I see our audience has dwindled, so I'll take that as a no. Going into closed session again for what's stated in the agenda. I'm not going to read all that. So, can I have a motion to go into closed? Thank you. Bailing me out.
LaCroy,
Aye.
Parkinson,
Aye.
Meskel,
Aye.
Weedman,
Aye.
Northern.
Aye.